Welcome to the show that looks at truth, fiction, and reality with a smirk. I'm Aaron Peterson.
I'm Amanda Sink.
And I'm Zach Parkerson. I always say it like a news reporter. I don't do it on purpose, but every time I sound like Ron Burgundy.
I'm Zach Parkerson, and this is the news. Welcome
it's
aboard.
70 and sunny out.
You could be a weatherman. I mean, it's the easiest job in the world. And they say you need a degree. I don't know what for. They're never right.
Right, you just got to guess.
Let's do a whole episode where we just bash the weatherman.
That seems really rude.
Could you imagine, let's say, so I'm a barista, right? If I got coffee as wrong as often as they get the weather wrong, there's no way I would be employed.
No, I mean, and plus, what kind of a son of a bitch is going to get coffee wrong?
They don't have a real formula. Mother Nature just messes stuff up.
They're supposed to, though. Why do I need you?
What's the degree for, then? What are they teaching them over there? How to read a teleprompter?
What is the course like?
They can still get an estimate, and then things change.
This is this is a test question. Did you look outside today? Yes. What did you see in the air? Clouds.
Looks
good.
My favorite
A plus.
My favorite weather person.
You have a favorite weather person?
No, not a favorite weather person, but in Mean Girls, when Amanda Seyfried, she feels her boobs and she's like, there's a 90% chance that it's raining outside.
I kind of want to go watch Mean Girls again all of a sudden. I don't know why.
I could stand to watch her touch her boobs.
I mean, who couldn't? Especially
this is
now.
Getting uncomfortable.
What do you mean especially? What do you mean especially now? You're saying she's grown up well?
She aged well.
Oh, she didn't hit the ugly box, huh? That's good to know. You don't want that.
I feel like she got prettier as she got older.
It's a rarity. That's a rarity.
I hear often from coworkers her name floated around as hottest celebrity.
She's a good one. She's a good pick.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Gal Gadot exists. When Stephen Amell's out there, how can anyone compete?
Okay.
Seriously, the first time I saw him do salmon ladders, I was just like, I don't even belong on this planet anymore. I just don't. I can't compete with that. His
workout vids are like.
That's what I'm saying. See, all right. So you guys back in my play
now. Very athletic. Yeah.
He's a hell of a man. A hell of a man. I could see him on a hottest celeb list. Sure.
Thank you so much.
Henry Cavill, though.
Yeah. Stephen Amell couldn't even get him coffee.
Wow. All right.
Every other week, in case you didn't know this is a podcast, every other week, one of our hosts introduces an original story, which we then use as a springboard for spirited and lighthearted discussion, whatever the moral theme of that story is. This is season 4 of Smirk. And this week, Zach is actually going to be reading a listener's story.
Yes, that's right. Brandon Smith is the listener who wrote in. I'm going to say right at the top because I hope Brandon's listening. Otherwise, that would suck.
Mm-hmm.
It's an abridged and edited version for time.
Yeah, Brandon, you did a great job. The story's great. It's close to a novel. It was
right.
It was quite hefty, as I might say.
He mentioned to us it's a full short story, and he's not wrong.
It's well done.
Yeah,
but he's also an amazing fan and listener of the show because, as we found out recently, he binged 18 Smirk episodes in a single day, which is insane.
Right, that's a lot of Amanda.
That's a little bit too much Amanda for a day. Yeah.
Do your ears bleed? How does it feel? Did that migraine ever go away?
It hurt. It's gotta hurt.
I'm telling you, we've come close to that number, I would imagine, based on the fact that we've been on the show that many hours. And we feel your pain, Brandon. We really, really do.
Ouch. Okay. Man, look.
I meant over writing. Writing is very hard, and it's very stressful, and it really puts a lot on the mental strain of the author, which you now are, Brandon. So thank you so much for doing that. And he said it was his first short story?
Yeah, he said hey, you know what? He said, "Hey, Smirk people. I'm a long-time Go and Ho listener who recently started listening to Smirk, and I've really been enjoying it. I've basically been binging through every episode because it is hard to put down. I'm actually dreading catching up to the latest episodes because then I will have to wait for new ones. Keep up the great work. Anyway, you guys inspired me to write my first original short story ever, so here it is. I hope you enjoy."
Oh, that's really cool.
You know, I normally just make a lot of snide comments and make people feel bad about themselves. But I want to tell you that is a really cool thing to hear, that we inspired someone to write their first short story. And it was a good story. It's a really interesting story. It's very fantasy driven. I don't want to give anything away.
How do you know this?
It certainly keeps with the theme of the Smirk.
Aren't you supposed to not say that you read it, though?
We normally don't read them, but I read it. Because I knew he was going to have... So I'm
the only one who hasn't read this?
I knew he was going to have to edit
left
it.
out.
You know what? Basically, I have to man the email, okay? So it came in, and I just dove in. What do you want me to do? I mean, I couldn't resist. It had a cool title.
Well, now I feel like you know everything.
I mean, I know more than you, but
Definitely
that's pretty much standard.
He knows like 4 things. And one of them is the title of the story.
And they're all movie related, except for that title. You know what?
Do you also know if it's truth or fiction?
I think you're going to figure it out.
I think you can tell pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with truth. Just off the bat, I feel like it's got to be truth then.
Let me ask you an honest question. Do you feel like The Princess Bride is true?
You don't know if it's not. There's no proof.
Then this could be triction.
No, God. You got to put that on a mug.
Stop it, Zachary. Leave this. It's a great word.
You know what? Let's get into Brandon's story. And by the way, if you like Smirk, every app has a share feature. So please do us a favor and share this episode on your social media outlets. And Brandon, be sure to tell your friends and family because we're about to read your story.
Yeah, hopefully I do it justice.
Yeah, really don't screw this up, man.
This
is like his first shot.
Zach.
If you embarrass him, he'll never try it again. And then that's on you.
Wow. Okay, no pressure. Suddenly I'm way more nervous. Wet. Gather around the campfire. It's time for a story. Gwendolyn stood at the window of her high tower and stared longingly at the courtyard below. The sun was out and an assortment of colorful birds had gathered around the fountain in the center of the garden. She followed them lazily with her eyes as they hopped and fluttered from place to place, singing all the while, blissful and free. Gwendolyn slumped against the windowsill. She wished she was a bird and could just fly herself away. It had been 2 months since the Shadow Horde had kidnapped her from Fortuna and locked her up there. What did they want? Was it for riches, power? The gods only knew. She plopped down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. At least today had been a relatively quiet day. The moans of the other prisoners had been less frequent, allowing her a welcome respite in which to lose herself in her thoughts. She closed her eyes and daydreamed. She smiled as her imagination briefly transported her to happier days, but the feeling quickly subsided when she was roused from her daydream by a sudden knock on the door. She sat up with a jolt. She could hear the sound of a key in the keyhole. She knew exactly what this meant. The door slowly creaked open and a pale, gaunt hand crept its fingers around the frame. The old hag emerged from the dark hallway outside, shuffling into the room. In her other hand, she held a bottle of mysterious liquid. Gwendolyn glanced down at the potion bottle and emitted a near-audible gulp of dread. The haggard old woman moved more quickly now to the side of the bed and removed the stopper from the bottle. "Please, no more. I won't try to escape, I promise," Gwendolyn pleaded in futility. Undeterred and without a word, the old woman thrust one hand behind Gwendolyn's head, gripping her hair forcefully with her claws and forcing her head tilted back. She felt the potion bottle press against her lips, and the bitter liquid poured down her throat. Gagging a bit, she swallowed what she could and then opened her mouth wide for inspection. When the old hag was satisfied with what she saw, she released the girl's head and moved quickly to the door, slipping back into the dark hall on the other side, slamming the door shut and locking it forcefully behind her. Gwendolyn lay in the small, silent room, the taste of the witch's bitter liquid still on her tongue. Its effects would take hold soon, sapping her powers and distorting the world around her. Her body was already starting to feel tingly, and eventually it would go completely numb. There was nothing she could do now but wait for the night, and the nighttime was when the monsters came. Strange and terrible were the monsters, shrouded in darkness with glowing red eyes and sharp teeth. They would appear one by one each night, creeping around the room, drawing closer and closer to the bed where Gwendolyn slept. The first thing she would feel is their warm breath on her skin, followed by their claws on her body, leaving marks that would cause her great pain when the morning came. But there was one monster who was not like the others. She called him Gray, because she thought he looked sad. Gray was a gentle monster with large, round eyes and a wide mouth that curved down on one side. He had never hurt Gwendolyn. In fact, he rarely came near her, preferring instead to sit in the corner of the room watching her. He would sit like that for hours, sometimes all night. In a strange way, Gwendolyn felt even safe when Gray was around, because none of the other monsters would come. But this night would be different. There would be no visits from Gray, or any of the other monsters for that matter. The sunlight had completely retreated now from outside Gwendolyn's window, and her eyelids had grown heavy. She was somewhere between asleep and awake when the noises started, the sound of footsteps moving hurriedly down the hall, doors opening and quickly slamming shut, voices, hushed at first, but growing increasingly frantic, then shouting. Somewhere in another room, a loud bang, then chaos. As the sounds of screaming voices grew closer and closer to Gwendolyn's room, she began to open her eyes, but they were suddenly blinded by a bright light as the door to her chamber burst open with great force. What looked like a large man in head-to-toe black armor entered the room. Without a word, he took 2 large strides forward and scooped up the small girl into his arms. Holding her tightly, the man turned and carried Gwendolyn out of the room. More armored figures filled the hall. One by one, the door to each prisoner's chamber was being forced open and the residents liberated. Gwendolyn's head rested upon her rescuer's shoulder. Before long, there was cool air all around her and bright lights that seemed to illuminate the entire sky. Gwendolyn passed out. The elevator doors opened with a soft dinging sound as Marcia Williams finished her morning coffee. She stepped out into the freshly polished tile of the hospital's 3rd floor. After a quick survey of the area, she disposed of the empty cup in the nearest receptacle and approached the reception desk. A heavy-set woman with glasses looked up from behind the counter and gave Marcia a quick assessment. "Name of patient?" she asked. "Jensen," Marcia replied. Room 304, I believe. Just down the end of the hall and take a right. The door is on your left." Marcia straightened the small binder of papers under her arm, then headed down the hallway. Reaching the end, she turned the corner and paused a moment. Down the entire length of the hall, people were standing outside of doorways, some engaged in hushed conversations, others crying. A news reporter with a camera crew could be seen at the far end of the hall. Besides each of the dozen or so rooms on either side of the hall were countless bouquets of flowers, teddy bears and toys, sympathy cards, and balloons. Marcia took a deep breath and approached room 304. In one corner of the room, a television was turned to the local news. The sound was muted, but subtitles at the bottom of the screen repeated the same story that had been playing nonstop all morning. On the other side of the small room was a rollaway-style hospital bed. In it, 8-year-old Sadie Jensen. She had IV tubes in her arms and various wires connected to her nearby machines that monitored her vitals. A man and woman stood beside the bed. By the look of their clothes and faces, they had been there all night, and had likely spent most of the time in tears. After brief introductions, Sadie's parents stepped out into the hall. Marcia approached Sadie's bedside and set her binder down on a nearby table, besides a stack of books. They looked well worn, as if they'd been read a dozen times. Marcia picked up the top one and gave the cover a quick skim. It featured an image of a medieval fairy tale world with a young princess featured prominently and wielding magical powers. Shadowy creatures with bright red eyes surrounded her. "The Adventures of Princess Gwendolyn, Book 1, Rise of the Shadow Horde," it read. "Sadie, my name is Marcia. It's nice to meet you," she said with the best smile that she could manage. The girl smiled back, the peaceful innocence in her eyes in stark contrast to the abuse that she had endured. "Nice to meet you, Marcia," she said. Marcia began to ask Sadie about herself, easy questions about her family, about what she likes to do for fun, about school. Sadie seemed happy to talk to her and quickly became comfortable enough to joke about boys and about the mean girls in her class, but before long, her energy began to wane and she let out a big yawn. "It's okay, Sadie," Marcia said. "We can talk more later, if you're tired." Sadie turned her head and started to close her eyes, but before she could, something caught her attention on the other side of the room. She began to stare transfixed at the muted television as the subtitles continued to recount the horrific tale. "At 9 p.m. last night, FBI and local police raided what is being called the largest known human trafficking compound in the country. Our sources tell us that dozens of children and young adults between the ages of 8 and 19 were being held captive, some of them for months or even years. The operation was exposed by venture capitalist Alan Bradford, who had come forward to police early yesterday with a bombshell revelation, exposing not only the existence and location of the compound, but also outing himself as a longtime patron of their services. Bradford is facing criminal charges." The text continued to scroll across the screen, but Sadie wasn't looking at that anymore. Instead, she was staring at the face of Alan Bradford, whose mugshot was now being shown. He was maybe mid to late 40s, had a head of hair full of gray, large round eyes, and a wide mouth that curved down on one side. End.
Dun dun dun.
Welcome to Audible.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So, Amanda, what do you understand what happened? Because I no, I read it.
I don't know. I feel like I don't.
Great, that's good. What do you think the moral of the story that you don't understand is?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I had a lot of visuals listening to the story, which I think is a good sign of a writer. Whenever you can listen to the way that it's written and kind of see it come to life.
And it pops.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess my moral of this story would be that we imagine whatever is necessary for survival. And creativity is survival.
Ooh, that's sexy.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you like that?
That would make a great fridge magnet.
Yeah, should I make t-shirts? I have a Cricut maker.
Creativity is survival.
Send those out with a little Smirk logo at the bottom.
Heck yeah, I'm going to do it. Bet.
Okay.
Brandon
Bet.
will send you one.
Bet. No, Amanda will send you one. What's this we stuff?
Yeah. Don't sign me up for work.
Fine, you guys don't get any
Right?
credit then.
You're not trafficking me. You're not doing it. I am not for sale. The moral of the story is run faster. No,
Shouldn't you know if you've read it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't read. I just read the story. I didn't read anything else after that. I would say the moral of the story is your mind will cover your trauma, so that creativity is necessary for survival. Something like that.
Ooh, that'd make a great fridge magnet. You know what I'm saying?
I'm totally gonna do that. I'm gonna copyright or trademark it. Yeah, my idea, brand new. Never thought of it before.
As a man listening to another man, it's easy to understand what you're saying.
It's hard being a woman in a man's world.
Someday we'll
It's another
mansplain
good
this
fridge
to you.
magnet.
I had heard girls won the world.
That they won or that they run?
That won, like who
Oh.
won the world? Girls.
Well, I have a t-shirt that says girls run the world. It's a running tank top.
Oh, they like jog around the world. What happens when they get to the ocean? What a dumb shirt.
do they fall off the edge of the earth at the end?
Yeah. And apparently your shirt is saying women are so dumb, they're just going to keep going through the water. They're going to try to run in the ocean. Come on. Women are smarter than this.
Wow.
What an insulting shirt.
Aaron's the most feminist in the room.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought you guys peaked with voting, but there's just nowhere but up as far as I'm concerned.
My God.
And women's suffrage. The moral of the story, Brandon wrote, it's never too late to do the right thing.
Oh.
Which is focusing on Alan more than I would have presumed.
That's interesting.
I agree. I also had assumed the moral had to do with like escaping.
I think it's just because of
that.
the point of view that it's written in. So the perspective is coming from her, so we presume that the moral is regarding her.
Right.
But I think that it still intertwines into, I mean, not necessarily what the morals that we had selected, or rather I selected, since Aaron just copied me.
I came up with that all by myself.
Yeah, what are you talking? When did you ever float that?
What are you talking about? We
Never.
didn't even hear you until just now. It's like you
You're
weren't
right.
even here.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're right.
Typical woman trying to take a man's idea.
Typical woman having to apologize to a man. Anyway, so, but I like the concept that
Smirkpodcast at gmail.com.
I like the concept that this character is so pivotal to the change. And it was, but I agree that my focus while listening to the story was the girl and what she did.
Right.
Well, what's interesting is that the way that I'm understanding the story, she's only free because the monster finally did the right thing, right? Like finally did good.
Which is an excellent segue to Brandon's first question.
That
Perfect.
Why do you think Alan Bradford decided to come forward, and is he a hero?
That's tricky because this is a record.
Yeah.
This is a digital record.
This is going to come up 10 years from now when I get fired from a TV show.
It's going to be on my Twitters. Man, will you tell us what the right answer is?
Yeah, what's the safe answer?
No, you guys got to go first. You're men. You know everything. You're right.
Well played. Nice
right.
job, Beth Harmon. I will say, is he a hero? No. But I do believe in redemption.
Careful.
I'm a big fan of redemption arcs in comic books, which are fiction, but this is also a fictional story. This is not a true story. He's definitely not a hero, but he's somebody who realized the wrongs of his decisions and finally tried to make amends. Now, does that mean that he should not be charged? Because the news report said that he was charged. Absolutely not. He should definitely go to jail because he's not a good man. But he's a bad person who did a good thing. Ultimately, finally did a good thing. So he's definitely not a hero. In fact, I would say he's still a villain, but even villains have deeper arcs.
Yeah, he's not, to the first part of the question, why did he come forward? I think it's pretty obviously guilt. Maybe Gwendolyn, or I guess Sadie, was the youngest,
And got to him, like, just won him over in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's almost too much for him to bear. Seeing what she was going through. But is he a hero? No. Is the action heroic? Yes.
I like that distinction.
But
you should have went first.
But again, to your point, Aaron, he is a villain. I mean, yeah, he should also be true because who know how, you can't even fathom how many lives he'd ruined before he was finally won over.
Well, and it comes back to the concept of one bad thing doesn't ruin a good person, and one good thing doesn't make a bad person good. Like, you can do something that's outside of your character, outside of your nature, that is good or bad. And in this situation, he did something that was good. So there's a piece of him that, potentially has redemption, to Aaron's point, which could provide for a good sequel. But it doesn't make him a hero. He doesn't have heroic tendencies outside of this one action, at least that we know of.
Right.
Right. In the immortal words of Dave Chappelle on Bill Cosby, but he's
that is going to haunt you.
What? That's a stand-up special. I'm quoting a stand-up special.
Yeah, that's true. That is a quote. I'm not sure if people are going to hear that quote. They might just hear a bleep when you say it. I'm gonna weigh the options of that one.
Yeah,
but, they'll find it.
You know what? Yeah, I won't say it. Just you can bleep that out. Just look up what Dave Chappelle has to say about controversial figures. That's all I'll say, because otherwise my career's already over.
You get canceled. You get canceled. You get canceled.
But I think to the other point, it's guilt, and it's also, we don't know what else was going on. We don't know.
Well, we know he was involved
person...
for a long period of time before he finally got a case of the rights.
Right.
We don't know why he was involved, though. Like, there could be more. And obviously, this is Brandon's story. Mm-hmm. This feels like it's fictionalized. But there could always be something that was held over this guy's head. We don't know what alternative scenarios or like additional scenarios are happening with this particular person. So he could have had other things influencing him.
Sounds like he had a punch card. It sounds like he went there often.
One more, you get a key.
Yeah.
Oh my God. These jokes are nuts.
Stop! The joke never came. It never happened.
You've earned yourself a free.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Anyway, what is the next question that Brandon had come up with?
Have you or anyone you know ever experienced trauma so severe that you tried to block it out of your mind in some way? And how so? Brandon, that's quite a personal question you're cutting to.
Yeah. Brandon, how about...
I was like, is this going to turn into my therapy? Because that's usually Monday nights.
No, I love that he says, have you known anyone? So basically, he wants us to confess other people's traumas. Yeah. And just, yeah. My friend Billy told me about this traumatic experience. And let me tell you, people on the internet, all about it. He had to suppress it, but thankfully he told me before he did.
Or Brandon is just trying to give you an opportunity to say, oh, no, this didn't happen to me, but this happened to someone I know.
Oh, wink, wink, nod, nod.
There's a friend of mine, let's call him Jack. Went through some stuff.
Yeah. I got a friend, too. His name's Baron.
Yeah.
And Amanda's got a friend named Sheila.
Samanda?
Sheila. That's brutal, man.
Oh, Sheila.
Yeah, my trauma is I dated a woman named Sheila, and now this shows its existence.
Oh, I've actually got that trauma. Yeah, I feel you. closely and close name anyway.
I mean, I'll speak. I mean, I've definitely gone through some severely traumatic things, but I don't think my mind operates in such a way that it would ever let it get blocked out.
Yeah, same here. My mind amplifies it.
Right. Yeah, my mind's more fixated. It's not going to let the trauma go.
Yeah, I like to process it.
My trauma is definitely there in memory. However, I just learned this, so this is a fun story.
Oh.
If you experienced trauma while you were nonverbal, your memory is stored in a different way than when you become verbal.
Now you mean you can't talk, or you just choose not to talk? Like, I'm just hanging out in an elevator and something traumatic happens, but I wasn't talking. Is that gonna do the same thing?
No.
Or I have to be young?
No. You're so little that your brain doesn't know the words and understanding to be able to compartmentalize what happened. All you know is basically your memory is locked into a feeling. And so then that's when it rides into your subconscious. So although you might not have a memory of what trauma took place, you might have a trigger that is connected to a certain feeling, which is where your memory resides. Whereas when you become verbal and you're able to compartmentalize those memories of trauma, you can actually remember them and replay them, or you might have a trigger from a sense of smell or something like that. And so it's very different. And so I've learned that I have traumas in both areas. So while my brain didn't choose to block it out, I was just too young in one scenario to remember it in the traditional sense of a memory.
Oh, I don't know if you heard that, Zach, but it sounded like somebody slapping a psychology degree on us.
Yes, but I stole it from my therapist.
Sounds like a weatherman told you this.
I mean, explains why nothing traumatic. Maybe I don't know if anything traumatic happened when I was 2. So, well, actually, who am I fooling? I was processing words and things when I was very, very young. So, I would imagine 3 months.
Did he just try to come off super snooty?
Like 3 months is where I capped that.
I was speaking at the age of 1 or 18 months old.
Latin. I was speaking Latin.
Yes. I had full composition of the lingual arts at that age.
Yeah, that sounded much more fancy than what I said.
I was using my psychology degree.
I was using my subscription to Psychology Magazine.
I was using my TED Talk.
Or actually, I'm kidding. It's Highlights. Nobody remembers Highlights? I'm that old? All right.
I don't know, yeah. Like when you dye your hair.
Oh, that hurts. It's so true.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's Brandon only gave us 2 questions. I would ask you if it was truth or fiction, but even though in his email he said he was going to tell us at the end if it was truth or fiction, he did not. Brandon, you messed up.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
I'm really hoping that is fiction because, or obviously he's very sympathetic to the guy that turned the group in. Maybe he knows that guy.
Or maybe he's trying to process all sides of a situation.
Maybe he knows the guy that had that, and it's a trauma for that guy, so that's why we put the whole thing together.
His heart goes out to Bradford.
Here's a fun question. So since we've already talked about...
Is it, though?
It's
going to be
hard.
It's going to be hard.
Fun question.
Hard to turn this one into fun, but I'd love to see you try.
Yeah.
It won't be fun. But... in the story, we found out how
if you give one trafficker 3 women and you give another trafficker 4 women.
Stop. So in the story, we found out how Sadie basically coped with what happened to her. She created her own story, and it was a story of, survival, basically. Do you have any recollection of past coping skills or things that you do now when you experience a hard day or a traumatic event?
Coping skill? I just deal with it. I don't.
But how do you deal with it?
What a man. He's a man.
Do you sit in your feelings?
I walk it off, Amanda.
Okay.
Like
so
a
you exercise.
real man. Well, I didn't mean it literally. No, I just...
You're a runner, so I thought maybe you meant it literally.
I do that. That's true. I do that. That's usually if I can get angry about something, I will just randomly go for a run because it's a good way to release that kind of tension. But in terms of coping with it, no, I address everything forthright. And I think that's my coping mechanism. Like I used to just keep it internal and not address it. But now if something makes me, I just come right out and deal with it because I'm not young anymore, as the hair dye alluded to. So I tend to not want a bunch of baggage weighing me down. I'm just going to take care of it and move on. Yeah,
I feel like that's funny when you get older. That kind of happens. Mm-hmm. You realize that the baggage you carry is unnecessary, or you learn to communicate to other humans.
Or
Absolutely.
You find out that your baggage, if it's a trauma, is not yours. It's somebody else's that you're carrying.
Could be. Yeah.
Wow. That's deep.
I know, right?
Well, I think many people will wear other people's traumas. I mean, parents notoriously wear their kids' trauma. They carry it with them, as much as they don't realize it. Like my mother carries mine, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes down the line because you feel responsible because you're responsible for those people.
You're responsible because you didn't pull out.
Yeah. Hey, literally. Yeah, that works.
Be faster, man.
Just like when people have pets, they feel responsible if something happens to those pets. I mean, so yeah, you do carry those burdens, and that's just something you have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about past coping skills. I don't think I had them. I think I was just angry.
You learn as you go.
Yeah, or I guess, I don't know, my process is weird.
I get worried even now into adulthood, much less so than I used to, but the emotions of something will ride really heavy with me. And I used to maybe be too reactionary to those emotions. And even though I still struggle, I was speaking, even though I still struggle with managing the anxiety I get from and impulsivity I get from my emotions, I've learned to sit a little bit better with them depending on the situation and reflect on them and breathe and not send myself into panic attacks. And so that is, finding 5 blue objects in a room is like one of my typical things to do to calm me down and actually sit and process my feelings, because I had learned, I started to learn that while it may seem like, to Aaron's point, I'm angry about something, there's obviously another feeling that's underneath there. Why am I angry? Maybe I'm upset about something else. So
what happens if you're in an all white room or an all black room or an all yellow room? Like you can't find 5 blue things.
then you're going to have to go by
around?
sounds, identify anything that you can feel or touch. Like you could just start naming the 50 states. Just something to distract your mind from what you're struggling to cope with.
That would work great until you get to Mississippi and everybody trips on that. So that would just ruin everything. Mississippi. Damn it! I'm mad again.
MISSISSIPPI.
M-I, crooked letter, I, crooked letter, I, humpback, I.
What?
Nice. I like it.
That's how we learned in school, back when we had the schoolyard and we had to walk in snow and it was very cold and it was a little building.
And you went up a hill and down a hill and they were like 8 miles long.
Oh, yeah. I didn't miss my one shot. Didn't miss my chance to blow. Nope.
Oh, my God.
Lord.
Zach, what is the title of Brandon's story?
The Adventures of Princess Gwendolyn.
Oh, of course.
I don't know about you, but my heart went flutter.
Why?
Because it's a cool story, and I like it.
Okay.
It's about a girl who escaped sex trafficking. I'm sorry that it didn't melt your heart, you son of a bitch.
Right. Yeah, she had to die at the end, and then I would care.
She escaped, and at the last second, damn it.
She was carried out of the facility, and then they got hit by a truck. That sucks.
Oh my God. Your brain is very dark.
Is it sad that I would laugh at that?
She had tasted freedom.
Oh my goodness.
She'll go to the good place.
Oh, man.
There is no good place. That was the twist.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know what? As our show goes, we will occasionally pick listener stories to read and discuss on Smirk. And if you'd like the chance to have yours read, like Brandon's, which was a very good story, by the way, I want to make sure as many jokes we made. Great job.
Write more stories, Brandon.
Absolutely.
For yourself, for your friends, for publication. Just write.
Absolutely. And you can email them to mystory@smirkpodcast.com. That's mystory@smirkpodcast.com. And if you like Smirk, please share this episode on your social media outlets. Join the conversation by joining our Facebook group. Look for Smirk Podcast on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @Smirk Podcast. Just be sure to use the show's hashtag Smirk. And we're in whatever podcast app you use.
As Brandon writes his own life story, he'll always remember to tell it with a smirk.
Oh, that was clever.
Oh, look at you, Lottie. Frickin' da.
Oh, seemed pretty good to me. Thought it was a nice little sign off. I bet he'll get a kick out of it.
Nice job editing that story, too, by the way. That was good.
I took like a page and a half out.
It really was a good story, though. It was a good story.
It was. I think his version is better. It's just not, fit for radio.
Condensed.
Yeah.
You should have slipped in a couple twists and turns, though, like...
Just to mess with him?
Yeah, just to completely... Where he's like, that's not what I wrote! God damn it! What is this?
And as she looked down the hallway, she saw the T-800 approaching slowly.
And then she got her first taste of freedom and was hit by a truck, apparently.
You keep saying it's like that's a bad thing. I think that's a great ending. I don't know. I really hope when the movie happens, that's
at
where
the last second, she screamed to the sky and yelled, "Shazam!" saving herself and the man rescuing her.